Hi everyone, this is Maria Hocking, the UK Life Changer, here today delivering episode 3 of the Happiness Hits, designed to bring you hope, inspiration with a view to transformation. And today I'm joined by Jake Wellings. So it's a delight to have you here, Jake. Please tell us what you do and why you do what you do.
So thanks, Maria, for having me on. I'm really grateful. So what I do is I work with people on their own relationships and their own inner culture, because our inner culture affects our outer culture. And I really love to help people connect with their nature so that they can connect with the nature outside of themselves. So
fantastic.
Yeah, that's the basis of what I
And
do.
who do you generally work with, Jake? What sort of type of people?
I normally work with a lot of men. So I work with a lot of men, young people. So teenage up to kind of 25, 26 years old. And a lot of it's either on youth empowerment and about helping men work on their masculinity and their purpose and presence.
Fantastic. And I know you've got a lot of experience of helping people, Jake. So my first question to you today is, what do you believe about happiness?
What do I believe about happiness? I believe, I guess, biologically it's a feeling, but I think happiness is something that has a lot of merriment involved, a lot of different emotions and a lot of different things that kind of go on. But I think happiness is that feeling that lifts us up. It's that feeling that it can be that it's almost like a bird. It can fly in and you can feel a sense of happiness and then it disappears. It's like when you get an A on an exam, or you ace that promotion, or you've had a great conversation and then it disappears.
Right.
And I think happiness is something that is very flighty, but can be learnt and understood.
Yeah. And what would you say to someone who was in maybe a dark place right now that didn't believe that happiness can be learned? What would be your first words to them?
What would I say to them?
Yeah.
If they didn't believe happiness
could be learned, if they felt there was no way out of their feelings right now.
I would say to them, if it's possible for someone else, it's possible for you.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Because we're all human beings and we're going through an emotional experience. If it's possible for someone else, then it's possible for you.
I like that. Great advice. And how would you? I mean, obviously, I know that you work with a lot of people helping them find happiness. So obviously, and with regards to your own happiness, how do you ensure that you stay happy as much of the time as possible, if that makes sense?
So I guess I look for things that bring me joy, and I think the number one thing for me is if I work on my inner happiness rather than looking outside of myself for happiness. So I'll have certain rituals in the day that bring me to a place of peace and contentment.
Yeah.
And then I kind of enable myself to see the happiness. And I think when I'm not in resistance with things, there's a quote by Peter Crone that says true happiness is the absence of the search for happiness.
Yeah.
So if that lands with anyone, that it's basically, if I'm in resistance with the now, then I will never be happy, because it's that whole thing of being in the pursuit of it. It's always beyond us, but it's actually right here.
Yeah.
So I do practices that bring me to the present moment, so I can be not in resistance with what is, and that kind of brings me most happiness and joy.
Yeah. And I like what you're saying there, Jake, and lots of great wisdom. And you're talking about sort of going within. And I always think that we have to go within so we don't live a life without, if that makes sense. And I think, it's very easy, isn't it, in this day and age to rely on external things that we think might bring us happiness, and we've all been guilty of buying the latest mobile phone or a new car or a new sofa or,
having a chocolate bar.
Chocolate bars, brand clothes, the whole lot, and And I think it's a trap that we can easily fall into on relying on those material possessions to give us those little hits of what we think to be happiness at the time. But me and you both know that they don't bring long-term happiness. So what would you say to someone who is really, who has everything they want, the car, the house, the brilliant job, all that sort of thing, but they still feel unhappy? What would be your advice to them?
I guess when we look out into the world, we're looking for these things that are maybe set up by society to say this is what denotes being happy. The women, the car, the man, whatever it is. There are things that is said on the adverts that have kind of been conditioned into us, and I think when in those moments is connecting back to what did you like to do when you were a child?
Yeah.
What were the things, bringing that like playfulness back in? What were the things that you did that brought you happiness when you were a child? If you can't remember, ask your parents, ask friends, ask family members, and you'll find out when you kind of daydream. And I found this when I was sat in school, like the things that I end up thinking, I might be, I don't know, even now when I'm doing, doing invoices or admin or emails, and I daydream off to something else, that's probably the place that I'm most happy. And I think, especially in schools, they don't have that chance to daydream, which kind of is why we're just fed stuff. And why we think that is. So I guess to summarize that, I would say is to find the things that you would do naturally or things that you did when you were younger that brought you lots of joy and happiness.
Absolutely, yeah. And the things that bring us joy and happiness, I think the longest the joys and happiness don't cost anything, do they? From my experience, it's it's friendships, it's family, it's fun, it's the things that bring us joy, it's the memories that we create. You're absolutely right. So that is great advice there, Jake. And there was something else that I was going to ask you based on what you just said that was really, really important, actually, but it'll come back to me in a minute anyway. So what else do you think contributes to happiness?
Connectedness, people. Yeah, I think I sometimes tend to come across as being quite spiritual, and I think I think it helps, but I think if we know that we are connecting with people, then we're creating conversations, we're creating new thought patterns, we're not just staying in ourselves and going through the same patterns. And for a long life, for living long, and for happiness generally, and for kind of mental health, being able to connect with people is really, really important for happiness, and practicing kind of gratitude would be two things I would say that would, if you want to be happy, practice gratitude as much as you can in your day. But be really specific. Don't just be like, I'm grateful for my bed. I'm grateful for my bed because of the warm, comfy,
I get you.
Do you know what I mean? It's really like the deep reasons why, and for me it does, and for clients I've worked with, is to expand that feeling and be in that constant vibration all the time, where we want to be in high vibe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've talked to people about happiness a lot, and I know that you have as well. And I think gratitude is one of those things that comes up every single time. And the people that are happy, the majority of the time, are people that practice the art of gratitude. And how have you applied this to your life, Jake, using gratitude, and what difference has it made?
Oh God, I tell you what, using gratitude has completely changed my life. I think when I'm doing it consciously, and some people can have practices where they might spend, for a long time I used to go to bed and I would say three things that I was grateful for, two small things and one big thing, and I always felt I slept better. If I was with a partner at the time, they would be like, oh, that feels really good, and they would say what they were grateful for. I just felt a lot more content. I was able to when a bad situation came up, I could always find a way of being grateful for it, whether it was the learnings, whether it was, whatever would happen. As long as I was grateful for what I had right now in this moment, then I was able to get past it. I was able to go through it.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And gratitude is such a powerful tool. And I think, as you were talking there, it kind of reminds me there's kind of like sort of two elements to this, because it's really easy, isn't it, to become, I guess, lost in life, trying to chase the next thing all the time, and trying to achieve the next goal and trying to go forwards and forwards and forwards. And it's great to do those things. But if we can also be grateful for what we have now, and that's where the danger lies, And I truly believe that to be truly happy, you've got to be able to be present in the moment and to be grateful for what you have now, but also be able to look to the future and figure out, what do I want? And so what I'm curious about is how do you balance those two things, if that makes sense? You obviously practice gratitude, and how do you balance that with, looking for what you want to achieve next, or the difference you want to create or make to other people? Do you get where I'm coming from with that?
Yeah. So I guess I look at it in two different ways. I look at it in a way that I come from life with gratitude, because it creates a peace and contentment in my life, because I become happy with what is now. But it doesn't really mean that I rest on my laurels.
Right.
The other thing that I think is completely different, instead of using happiness as a thing that you want in the future, is about having it now. But the other part is about the creation. So happiness, happiness, peace and contentment is now. And we are all creating beings. Doesn't mean to say, like you and I, for example, we're always creating stuff, content, meeting new people, creating new conversations. That, as a human, the future is about creation. It's not about happiness.
Right. Yes.
The now is about happiness.
Yes.
The future is about planning to create something that moves you in to the happiness, because the future is happening now.
Yes.
I know it's a really hard concept to take on, but for me, it's about creation. Like, future is about creation. Like, it's fun, it's playful, it's being a kid.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're already, and I think there's this happiness versus joy. Happiness can come and go, but joy is that thing where you kind of like, you might be doing the most mundane, boring job, but it's for the greater good of the end of what's going to happen. If you've got like a bazillion chores to do and washing and whatever, and you've got 4 kids and you're cleaning up, but once you get all of those jobs done, you'll be able to have time for yourself. You'll be able to do that, and if you didn't do them, you wouldn't experience happiness or joy.
No.
But that after that you are going to experience it. So I think it's the same with going into something new, whether you're experiencing change and you might be finding it challenging with like anxiety or something like that. But if beyond that fear and beyond that anxiety there is excitement, there's that creation, then it's worth doing. It's worthwhile, because it's going to bring you joy in the end.
Right. Okay. Brilliant.
Does that make sense? I know that was kind of
no, it does completely.
Round the houses. I'm like a million ideas and like
as you can tell, everyone, Jake is very creative. No, that's great. I think that explains it very, very well. And what I would also like to ask you about today is we're touching on a lot of topics here, I guess, our values, and I think values and happiness, I think you have to have the knowledge about values to be happy. And if there was someone watching this who had no concept of what personal values were right now, how would you explain it to them? Or core values, or should I say?
So core values are things that we connect to, are things that we need, that bring us space, make us feel lighter, raise our vibration. Things that you value that don't bring you down. So or make you feel safe, or make you feel loved.
Okay, give me some example of a couple of your core values, for example.
Truth right. is a core value of mine. A sense of kind of compassion, discernment. So like being able to judge things and to pay attention to that. So kind of my top 4 would be kind of truth, honesty, integrity, love. And those ones I think will help me along the way, emotionally and mentally.
And how do they
So,
help you specifically?
how do they help me? I guess it's the way I am in myself and how I cultivate those feelings
Mm,
and emotions. I notice uh, that I feel resistance in myself. I notice I don't feel good in myself when I don't speak my truth, when
right.
I
Okay.
don't say what I need, when I don't set my boundaries.
Mm,
All of that kind of comes into it about kind of keeping my word. I feel worse in myself if I don't
yeah.
speak it out. Um, I guess with practicing compassion is similar. It's
Mm,
about connection and kindness and empathy. All of these kind of values and words kind of come together. And I think for me, if I didn't have compassion,
mm,
then I would also be at dis-ease. I would be uneasy in myself. I wouldn't be able to connect with people. I wouldn't have good relationships. I wouldn't have a good relationship with myself because I would just constantly hit myself over the back with a stick,
yeah.
metaphorically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, with other values, obviously love is unconditional. So I think if we could spread more of that, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that one. Yeah.
Is that kind of
Yeah. But yeah,
yeah?
that's exactly, where I was going with that. And so, I mean, there might be someone watching this right now that is thinking, how do I work out what my values are? And what would you say to them? What would your advice be? Or if you were working with someone, for example, who was trying to figure out their values, how would you take them down that route?
Taking someone down the route of values
Mm,
is I guess if you start with the external and then help them to then internalize them. So they might have had some experiences in their life where they're like, oh, I thought that was really good. I
yeah,
can really like that was a good experience or
yeah,
that was a bad experience. We'll probably start there
yeah,
and say, what was it that you valued about that person, or what in that
yeah,
time did you like? Oh, I like that she listened to me.
yeah,
So, or I like that we were able to have conversation and I could trust her. Oh, so that one of your values is about trust
yeah.
and maybe possibly openness. So
Right. Yeah.
we would then explore from those peak experiences
Yes.
kind of what their values were just by what they were doing or how they were being,
Yeah.
either could be in nature or could be with people.
Yeah, absolutely, and that is great, isn't it? Is that those if we look back, and there will always been a peak experiences in our lives, won't there? Where we felt like a range of emotions, we felt a high or we felt a low, and I
Mm,
often say to people, when we're feeling that high, we're in line with our values at that point. We that when we're low, if we feel sort of low or feel tension or resistance, and then that's going against our values. So again, that's another
mm.
clue to discovering our values. And what benefits do you think it brings to people as a whole when they are finally, tuned to their values and living their life in alignment with them?
So what they would be like when they are aligned with them.
Yeah, so when they're living their life, doing the things that they love, doing the things that are important to them, making sure that trust, like love, joy or loyalty, or all these values, making sure their life is aligned with those values, if that makes sense. So yeah, so I mean, how does it affect their happiness? I think that's the question that I'm asking.
Yeah, I would say for that being more aligned with it, you're going to see more happiness
Right.
when we're not aligned with our values and we're in a story that doesn't really serve us and
Mm,
we are kind of being pulled down.
mm,
We're more focusing on that.
yeah,
But when our values are in line, what we're finding is we have more space in our heads, in our
yeah,
bodies, in our experience to see stuff. So we
yeah,
see the possibility and the opportunity of of where is happiness in this moment?
yes,
Could is there anything right now where I'm not feeling this isn't moving upwards towards
mm,
happiness and joy? It's moving me this way,
yeah,
and how do I navigate that? I
yeah,
think can become such a fun game on reflection. I
yes,
mean, when you're going through an experience, it probably might, from my experience, could be painful, could
yeah,
be a lot of discomfort and uncomfortable feelings, but it's in those moments of navigating that. I think when your values are more aligned,
yeah,
you work in a way where you're higher high vibration, where
Yeah.
you're feeling on top of the world,
Yes.
and you can see it. It kind of allows you to see what is the potential or the possibility in moments, whether it's a new job, a new friend,
Yeah.
whether it's, you know, and connecting with someone, having a laugh, you know,
Yeah.
whatever it is. I think when you're aligned, that allows you to be in flow.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, and as you were talking, I just remembered what I was going to ask you earlier, because something you said then triggered what I was going to ask you earlier. And you were talking about, I think it's when you said the word "see" there, but I mean, you mentioned daydreaming earlier, you know, and that we don't, well, children in school don't often get the chance to daydream, but as adults, we don't allow ourselves to daydream and to think about what could be, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering what you think about that, what you feel about that.
I think it's something that I'm reading a book at the moment by the School of Life, and it's on emotional education, and it's by a guy called Alain de Botton.
Yeah.
And what he was saying, there's a few things that kind of help towards being emotionally literate and being helpful. And it's seeing. You ever seen the film The Dead Poet Society?
I might have done. It's very familiar, but I can't remember it offhand. No.
There's a quote in there that he says, and it's comes from a private school background, and it's about a poetry, a kind of I would say a poetry teacher.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying from this is in this quote, he basically says something along the lines of, don't quote me on this, is that things like engineering and medicine and all that kind of stuff are very noble pursuits.
Yeah.
But if we didn't have love and romance and beauty and art in our life, we wouldn't really be human. We wouldn't be having a human experience.
Right.
So I think what brings the daydreaming in more is that art side, is that, you know, telling stories, doing things that, like, creating, that allow you to daydream, to take time and space away from being on the pursuit of something, and being on our purpose. To the purpose right now in this moment is just to have fun. The purpose in this moment is to just see stuff. And I think daydreaming comes when we allow ourselves to be taken in by the art of something, the beauty of something. I think Simon, I think it was, is it Simon Seligman?
Right.
He's like I think it's Dr. Seligman. I can't remember his first name, but he's like one of the gurus on happiness. And he was saying that appreciation of beauty is something that will increase your happiness in life. It's one of the top 25 strengths. So the more you kind of practice that skill of seeing the beauty in things, seeing the art, seeing someone's art, whether it's a conversation or a painting on a wall, and show that sense of appreciation. I think what I'm saying here is appreciating art and beauty helps people to daydream a bit more, because they become inspired.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think daydreaming, you know, from my school days, I remember being told off for daydreaming, you know, but we should all be daydreaming more, shouldn't we? And you know, we should all be taking that time out to allow ourselves the opportunity to daydream. And I think it's really easy to just keep going on the treadmill, the 9 to 5, you know, doing what you've got to do every single day. But like you say, you know, we need to take this time out to appreciate the beauty, to appreciate the art, to appreciate the conversations. And absolutely. And you know, I think, you know, some of the most successful people are the biggest daydreamers, you know. And how do you think, I mean, obviously right now, because, you know, with the pandemic, there's a lot going on, isn't there? You know, and I'm sure you've seen evidence, like I have, that people are starting to change the way they think a little bit. Some people are unhappy in their jobs, and this has made them realize they need to make a change. Other people are just feeling unsettled and they want to make a change, but they don't know what change that is. Would your advice be to them to take that time out to reflect and to allow themselves to daydream, or would it be something different?
Yeah, I think it depends on the focus. If it's if you're taking time away from worrying and being immersed in kind of anxiety and fear, to do something that allows you to get yourself in that emotional state, mental state, to be able to daydream, I would say definitely, like, contemplation is one of the biggest skills you can ever have. That doesn't mean overthinking the same thoughts that don't serve us or haven't even happened yet, but to contemplate on what is, and contemplate on maybe how I could improve on my situation, or how I could improve on myself, or just asking questions, what does bring me more happiness, what does bring me more joy, and even just daydreaming about, I don't know, I guess with daydreaming there isn't this set thing. You're like, I'm going to do daydreaming and this is how I'm going to do it, because I feel like my mind wants to get in the way, and like it's a very adulty thing, isn't it? You're like, well, I have to daydream in a certain way, but I think if you get lost and you come back to the moment and you're like, oh great, I've just been off somewhere. And I think it's the same in conversation. Like, right now we could be, there is an agenda to talk about something, but I think conversation is a great way to daydream or dream together, and then it allows you on your walk home to be like, huh, that's funny, I wonder if this would happen. And I think, I think there was a book called I Wonder, and when I was a Steiner school teacher, that was one of the books that really helped me, is to say to yourself, if I did this, I wonder what would happen. So wondering helps young people that I work with to get themselves into a daydreamy kind of state. So if you wonder about and ponder on things, even just saying it to yourself, you can feel the energy.
I can
now.
I can,
I wonder what that, and that's the daydreaming state. So that's one thing I would probably offer.
That's good. And there's so much we can explore here, Jake. But one thing I really want to ask you, we can talk all day. One thing I want to ask you is, what do you feel has made the biggest difference to your happiness in your life?
Biggest difference to my happiness. I just think, coming back to it as a core truth around happiness is doing and being in a place of contentment, because then it allows happiness to come along and play. It's also interesting as well, is when you have a dinner party, you might want to invite different emotions, and you might just want to invite joy and happiness and humor and fun and intellect, because that's really good. Like, we'll have a conversation, it'll be really, have some wisdom at the table. But we're kind of afraid sometimes to bring everything else, whether it's or a bit of anger because I go a bit wrong, or to bring depression because it that'll bring the mood down. But I think if we can accept and bring all of our emotions, and I find that for me, whether you're having a conversation with someone, is just to even notice they're in you, doesn't mean they necessarily have to be communicated. I think being with all the emotions and accepting that they're all going to be there because we're having an emotional experience as a human being helps me to be more happy, because I know that things will move, and I know that emotions are temporary and they will come and go. And I think the practices and rituals, and I think Alan de Botton talks about this as well, is having a ritual, something that you do that cements you in being in a sense of peace or contentment. It's even in a moment, just if I get tense, it's like breathing deep into my stomach, and that brings me back to the present moment, that brings me back to feeling it. It stops me from going into my head, and as simple as that ritual of breathing. So if you can find a ritual of something like that, going for a walk, or whatever it is, those rituals have been really important to me. I have a practice of meditating consistently over a week, just for 20 minutes, and it seems to be able to help me connect more to all my emotions, and especially happiness.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I like the way you're talking about the table, the dinner table, having the wisdom, the joy, the happiness, the depression. And I think that's really important to recognize, isn't it? Is that we all experience all of these emotions in our lives, you know, and even me and you, we work with people, we try and make them, well, we do make them happier, if that makes sense. And but it doesn't mean that our lives are perfect, you know, and we still go through stuff. And I know you've been through stuff and I've been through stuff. And I guess we've got a lot of experience and knowledge because of that. But I think the message that I really want to get across here is that no matter what you're going through, it's temporary, isn't it? You know, and it's really, it always works for me, that tool, you know, just remembering everything you're going through right now is temporary, and there is movement, like you say, and things do change. And like, you know, some of the guests leave the dinner table occasionally and are replaced by other dinner guests. And I think that's it's a really great way to kind of explain that. And so just to summarize, I guess, if there's somebody watching this right now and they're going through a bit of a tough time, and you know, because there's a lot of uncertainty about the moment, isn't there? You know, and people can't see their friends and family, and you know, there's a lot of different things going on for a lot of different people, depending on where you are in the country. What do you think is going to be the biggest thing that is going to make the biggest difference to people's happiness as we continue to go through this pandemic?
I think for everyone to be able to listen to everyone and stay connected, whether that's via video, whether that's 2 meters distance apart. Connection is for me in these moments, I think, so that we lessen, it's just to be able to give space to what is, and to give space to the uncomfortableness of what's happening. Staying connected and sharing it with someone, it allows it to leave, allows it to be, you can then have a conversation and about it, to be able to kind of better quantify it, because you know, it's challenging, and it seems at the moment to be the new normal. So you know, it might not be temporary, so that's also something we can hold in, you know, and I'm ever the optimist. But I think connectedness and staying connected with people, and not to isolate ourselves, just to be really honest about how we're feeling and dealing with the situations that are happening right now. I think that would be my bit of advice.
Thank you, Jake. And I totally agree there. Connectedness is so important, you know, and I think sometimes we're afraid of showing vulnerability or asking for help. But actually, as we both know, that asking for help is a sign of strength. You know, and I also think there's another dimension on that, in the fact that, you know, we're afraid to ask for help sometimes, or afraid to have that conversation with somebody to say, actually, we're not okay. But actually, when we do have those conversations, we're also giving the other person opportunity to be kind, to listen. So it's kind of, you know, it's not all about us, it's about what we're doing for the other person in a positive way. If we do share, and if we do you know, reveal our vulnerability, and if we do say, actually, things aren't okay. And and I think right now a lot of the world is learning to talk more, and we are learning to connect more on different levels, aren't we? Which is a really, really good thing. So lots of challenges, but also lots of positive things. So thank you, Jake. You have been absolutely amazing. I have loved talking to you. But just before we finish, if people are interested in what you do, how can they contact you? What's the best way to do that?
I guess the best way would be either on Instagram. It seems pretty accessible for most people. So it's Breaking Through Coaching. That's my Instagram handle. You can contact me on my Facebook page as well. And you'll be able to find all my details, email, contact number on there. I put up videos probably once a week on something. I love to tell stories. So if you like a good story and something that might help you along your way, whether it's to do with culture, relationships, and basically understanding ourselves a little bit more, pop along to my page, and I'd love to connect.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Jake. It's been a delight to speak to you today, and we'll catch up again soon.
Thank you so much for having me on. Thanks, Maria.
Okay.